My name is Haley Montgomery, and I'm 32 years old. 2 weeks ago, I was nothing but excited for my brother Jason's wedding. Despite our 4-year age gap, we've always been inseparable. That changed when I received a mysterious text from an unknown number. You need to check the garage at your parents' house before the wedding. Not everything is what it seems. Those words would completely shatter our family's world. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you're ready for a story about family secrets that nearly destroyed us all. The drive back to my childhood home in Westport, Connecticut was filled with nostalgia. Spring flowers bloomed along the winding roads leading to the colonial-style house where I grew up. My parents had maintained it beautifully over the years. The white paint still gleaming, the garden meticulously tended. It was the perfect backdrop for wedding preparations. As I pulled into the driveway, Mom burst through the front door before I could even turn off the engine. "Haley, finally." She wrapped me in a tight hug, the familiar scent of her lavender perfume bringing back a flood of memories. "We've been waiting all morning. Jason and Stephanie just arrived an hour ago." Dad appeared behind her, his smile wide beneath his salt and pepper mustache. "There's my girl," he said, pulling me into a bear hug. Though semi-retired from his dental practice, he was still strong as ever. "Where's the happy couple?" I asked, grabbing my suitcase from the trunk. "In the kitchen," Mom said. "Stephanie's discussing the catering menu." Again. There was something in her tone, a slight tightness, that caught my attention, but she quickly masked it with a bright smile. Inside, I found my brother Jason leaning against the kitchen counter. At 36, he still had the athletic build from his college swimming days, though his dark hair was now flecked with occasional silver. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Hales." He swept me into a spinning hug like he'd done since we were kids. "God, I missed you." I laughed, feeling like the little sister again. "It's been 3 months, drama queen." "3 months too long," he replied, setting me down. That's when I noticed Stephanie watching us from the kitchen table. She was undeniably beautiful, tall and elegant with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and the kind of figure that suggested serious dedication to Pilates. She wore a simple cream blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent in Boston. "Haley," she said, rising to give me a delicate hug, careful not to press too close. "So glad you could make it early to help with everything." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, noticing how her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That evening, Mom prepared her famous roast chicken dinner. As we gathered around the dining table, the same oak table where we'd celebrated countless family milestones, I couldn't help but notice the subtle dynamics playing out. Dad kept trying to engage Stephanie in conversation about her job in pharmaceutical sales, but her answers were clipped, redirecting the focus back to wedding details. Mom offered the mashed potatoes to Stephanie twice, which she declined both times with a tight smile. "So Haley," Stephanie said during a lull in conversation, "Jason tells me your interior design business is cute. Is that fulfilling for you?" There was something in the way she said cute that made it sound like insignificant. "It's more than fulfilling," I replied evenly. "I just finished a project for a historical home renovation that's being featured in New England Home magazine next month." "Oh, how nice," she said, her attention already shifting. "Jason, honey, did you call about the lighting rentals?" Jason's face fell slightly. "I thought we agreed to do that tomorrow." "I specifically put it on your list for today," Stephanie said, her voice taking on an edge I suspected my parents pretended not to notice. "These vendors book up, and if we don't get the string lights I want, it'll ruin the entire reception aesthetic." "I'll do it first thing," Jason assured her, his hand covering hers. The Jason I knew would have pushed back with a joke, but this version of my brother seemed to shrink slightly in his chair. Later, as I helped Mom clear the dishes, I noticed her unusual silence. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, hands deep in soapy water. "Of course, sweetheart. It's just wedding stress. You know how it gets." But I didn't know. None of us had been married before, and Mom had always been the type to address tensions directly. This avoidance was new. That night, as I settled into my childhood bedroom, still decorated with swimming trophies and framed photos of Jason and me through the years, I thought about the strange text message. Looking at one particular photo of Jason with his arm around me at his college graduation, his face beaming with possibility, I felt a gnawing worry. Something was off about Stephanie, about the whole situation, but I couldn't place it. Just as I was about to turn off my bedside lamp, my phone buzzed with another text from the same unknown number. Time is running out. The truth is in the garage. Third shelf, red toolbox. I sat up, fully alert now. This wasn't a random prank. It was too specific, too insistent. Whoever was sending these messages knew our family and knew something important, something they believed I needed to discover before Jason and Stephanie exchanged vows. Despite my exhaustion from the 6-hour drive, sleep eluded me. The message kept replaying in my mind. The garage had always been Dad's domain, a meticulously organized space where he kept tools for his weekend projects and stored holiday decorations. What secret could possibly be hidden there? And, more importantly, should I look? Part of me wanted to dismiss these cryptic texts as someone's idea of a cruel joke, but another part, the part that had noticed the subtle tensions at dinner, couldn't let it go. I decided I would check the garage tomorrow, if only to put my mind at ease. Morning light streamed through my bedroom curtains, waking me after a restless night. The mysterious text still weighed on my mind as I made my way downstairs, finding the kitchen empty except for a note from Mom saying she and Dad had gone to pick up Jason's suit from Final Alterations. Perfect timing, I thought. With everyone out, I could check the garage without explanation. I had just reached for the door leading to the garage when Stephanie's voice called from behind me. "Haley, there you are. I've been waiting for you to wake up." I turned to find her perfectly put together in yoga pants and a fitted tank top, not a hair out of place despite the early hour. "I really need your help with the wedding favors," she continued, gesturing to the dining table now covered with tiny burlap bags, ribbon, and what looked like artisanal soap. "Your mom was supposed to help, but they had to run errands." "Oh," I said, my hand falling from the doorknob. "Sure, I can help. I just need to grab something from the garage first." "It'll have to wait," Stephanie said firmly. "The wedding planner is coming at noon to pick these up, and we're nowhere near done." Reluctantly, I followed her to the table and took a seat. For the next 2 hours, we tied tiny ribbons around soap bars and stuffed them into burlap bags, while Stephanie maintained a running commentary about her coworker Diana's fashion faux pas and her disappointment with the florist's inability to source peonies out of season. "You know," she said, eyeing my oversized t-shirt and athletic shorts, "the rehearsal dinner is a pretty formal affair. Do you have something appropriate to wear? I don't want the photos to look uneven." I swallowed my irritation. "I brought a dress. I think I can manage to look presentable." "Good," she nodded. "It's just that Jason mentioned you tend to go for more casual options. I've worked so hard to plan a sophisticated wedding." The implication that I might embarrass them hung in the air. I'd always prided myself on my sense of style. It was literally part of my job as an interior designer, but I bit back a retort. This weekend wasn't about me. As we worked, Stephanie's phone buzzed constantly. Each time, she would check it quickly, her expression unreadable before turning it face down. Once, after reading a text, she excused herself abruptly and made a call in hushed tones from the porch. When she returned, her smile seemed forced. By the time Jason and my parents returned, we had finished the wedding favors, and my opportunity to check the garage had vanished. Jason looked tired, shadows under his eyes suggesting he wasn't sleeping well either. "Everything okay?" I asked him quietly as Stephanie walked the wedding planner through a detailed list of instructions. "Yeah, just wedding stuff," he said, but his usual warmth was muted. "Steph's got high standards. Sometimes it's hard to keep up." "You seem different," I ventured. "Are you happy, Jace?" Something flickered across his face, uncertainty, before he masked it with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course I am. Stephanie's amazing. I'm lucky she chose me." Chose him? The Jason I knew would never have phrased it that way. My brother had always been confident, self-assured. This man beside me seemed diminished somehow. Later that afternoon, as everyone scattered to handle various wedding tasks, I overheard raised voices from the guest room where Jason and Stephanie were staying. I paused in the hallway, not proud of eavesdropping, but too concerned to walk away. "You promised you would tell them," Stephanie hissed. "I will, but not now," Jason replied, his voice pleading. "It's not the right time." "When is the right time? After the wedding? When the gifts are safely deposited?" "That's not fair," Jason said. "You know that's not what this is about." "All I know," Stephanie replied coldly, "is that you made a promise. If you can't keep this one, how can I trust you to keep your vows?" The conversation ended abruptly, and I quickly retreated to my room before either of them emerged. "Tell us what? What was Jason hiding?" At dinner that night, I tried to talk to my parents about my concerns, catching Mom alone in the pantry. "Mom," I whispered, "is everything okay with Jason and Stephanie?" They seemed tense. She busied herself reorganizing spice jars that were already perfectly aligned. "Every couple has pre-wedding jitters, honey. This feels like more than jitters. Have you noticed how different Jason is around her? How he barely stands up for himself?" Mom sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "we accept things we shouldn't for the people we love." Before I could press further, Dad called her back to the dining room. Her cryptic comment lingered with me through dinner, where Stephanie dominated the conversation with detailed explanations of her wedding vision and subtle criticisms of the venue staff. That night, a third message arrived: "Tomorrow will be too late." Photos don't lie. Staring at my phone in the darkness, I made my decision. I needed to see what was in that red toolbox. Once everyone was asleep, I would check the garage. The house had finally fallen silent around midnight. I slipped out of bed, wincing at every creak of the old floorboards beneath my feet. Armed with only my phone's flashlight, I made my way downstairs, careful to skip the third step from the bottom that had always announced our teenage attempts at sneaking out. The door to the garage made a slight scraping sound as I pushed it open, and I froze, listening for any sign that I'd disturbed someone's sleep. Nothing. Just the familiar ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. My flashlight beam swept across the garage, illuminating the organized chaos of my father's domain. Dad's workbench stood against one wall, tools hanging in precise formation above it. The family cars were parked in the driveway to accommodate wedding supplies, leaving the concrete floor open but cluttered with boxes of decorations. The shelving unit stood against the far wall. 5 metal shelves containing everything from paint cans to holiday decorations. I moved closer, my heart pounding irrationally. This was my parents' garage. There couldn't possibly be anything sinister here. The third shelf was at eye level, packed with Christmas ornaments, old tax documents in accordion files, and a stack of board games with worn boxes. Behind an artificial wreath, I spotted it, a red metal toolbox I remembered from childhood. Dad had always kept his precision tools inside, the ones he didn't want us kids touching. With trembling hands, I pulled it forward and released the latches. Inside, nestled among screwdrivers and wrenches, was a manila envelope that clearly didn't belong. I glanced toward the door again, listening. Still quiet. I opened the envelope and slid its contents onto the workbench, using my flashlight to examine them. My breath caught in my throat. Photos. Dozens of them. All of Stephanie. But not the polished, controlled woman who was about to marry my brother. These showed her with another man, looking intimate and very much a couple. The timestamps on some of the digital prints showed dates as recent as 2 months ago. In one particularly damning image, they were kissing outside a hotel room door, her hand on his chest in a gesture of easy familiarity. My mind raced as I continued sorting through the evidence. Hotel receipts showed bookings under the name Stephanie Wilson. Not Turner, which she had told us was her maiden name. Credit card statements revealed charges for jewelry and clothing on an account belonging to the man in the photos, identified as Robert Carson on a photocopy of a driver's license. Most disturbing of all were documents suggesting Stephanie was already married. A marriage certificate from Nevada showed her wed to Robert Carson 3 years ago, with no record of divorce that I could find among the papers. Then came the financial documents. Bank statements showing systematic transfers from Jason's accounts to an offshore bank. Small amounts at first, but growing larger in recent months. My brother's account balances had dwindled alarmingly. A sticky note with what appeared to be account passwords was attached to one statement. The final discovery made my blood run cold. Legal documents showing Stephanie had used multiple identities over the past decade. Stephanie Wilson. Stephanie Blackwell. Stephanie Reeves. Each identity came with a different social security number, different background details, but always the same woman in the ID photos. I sat back on my heels, mind reeling. Stephanie wasn't just having an affair. She appeared to be running an elaborate scam with my brother as her latest victim. The sudden rush of wedding plans, her insistence on a quick ceremony, her controlling behavior, it all made terrible sense now. What should I do? Take the evidence straight to Jason? Would he even believe me? I'd seen how he looked at Stephanie, how eager he was to please her. What if he dismissed these documents as fake or manipulated? After taking photos of everything with my phone as backup, I carefully replaced the contents in the envelope, then returned the toolbox to its spot on the shelf. I needed time to think, to plan my approach. But I also needed to act quickly. The rehearsal dinner was tomorrow night, with the wedding scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Sleep was impossible. I paced my room for hours, torn between protecting my brother and fear of his reaction. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I would confront Stephanie directly, give her a chance to come clean before I took the evidence to Jason. Perhaps, faced with exposure, she would simply leave. That would break Jason's heart, but it would be less devastating than going through with a fraudulent marriage only to be fleeced and abandoned later. I found my opportunity when Stephanie came downstairs early, heading to the kitchen for coffee. My parents were still asleep, and Jason was out for a morning run, his lifelong habit when stressed. "We need to talk," I said quietly, closing the kitchen door behind me. Stephanie looked up from the coffee maker, her expression carefully neutral. About? About Robert Carson. About the money you've been taking from Jason's accounts. About the fact that you're apparently still married. I kept my voice low but firm. The change in her demeanor was instantaneous and chilling. The carefully cultivated warmth vanished, replaced by cold calculation as she assessed me. "I don't know what you think you found," she said, her voice deadly quiet, "but I suggest you keep it to yourself." "I found everything, Stephanie. Or whatever your real name is. Photos, bank statements, marriage certificate, all of it. You need to leave before you hurt my brother any more than you already have." She laughed softly, a sound entirely devoid of humor. "And you think Jason will believe you? His mentally unstable sister who's always been jealous of his relationships? The sister who's been single for years while he found someone to build a life with? What are you talking about? I'm not unstable. Aren't you?" Her smile was vicious now. "That's not what your medical records will show when I'm done. Depression. Paranoid delusions. Fabricating evidence due to pathological jealousy. Jason's told me all about your history of attention-seeking behavior." I stared at her, speechless. Jason had never said anything like that about me, because it wasn't true. We'd always been close, supportive. "Nobody will believe you," she continued, stepping closer. "I've made sure of that. For months, I've been laying the groundwork. Little comments to your parents about being concerned for your mental health, suggestions to Jason that your clingy behavior toward him might need professional help." My stomach dropped as I recalled subtle shifts in my family's behavior, the careful way they sometimes phrased things around me, concerned glances I'd attributed to wedding stress. "You won't get away with this," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Stephanie's eyes were cold as she replied, "I already have. Now be a good little sister and keep your delusions to yourself, or I'll make sure you regret it. Jason has a good job, excellent benefits. I've invested too much time in this to walk away now." She brushed past me, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, the scent of her expensive perfume lingering like a thread in the air. I woke disoriented, my head pounding. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom window at an angle that suggested late morning, which couldn't be right. I never slept past 7, especially not with the rehearsal dinner scheduled for tonight. When I tried to get up, dizziness washed over me. I remembered confronting Stephanie in the kitchen, then returning to my room to think. After that, nothing. Had I fallen asleep? It didn't feel like natural sleep. I reached for my phone to check the time, 12:47 p.m., but it wasn't on my nightstand. Groggily, I stood and walked to my bedroom door, turning the knob. It didn't move. Fully alert now, I rattled the doorknob, then pounded on the door. Hello? Is anyone there? I'm locked in. Muffled voices came from downstairs, too distant to make out words, but unmistakably agitated. I pounded harder. Mom? Dad? Someone let me out. Footsteps on the stairs, then my mother's voice, tight with worry. Haley? Honey, are you awake? Mom, the door's locked. Let me out. A pause. I think you should rest a bit longer, sweetheart. You're not feeling well. What are you talking about? I'm fine. Someone locked me in. Another voice joined my mother's, Stephanie's, soft and concerned. See what I mean? The paranoia is getting worse. She locked herself in, Sandra. I watched her do it last night during her episode. Episode? What the hell was happening? Mom, she's lying. Let me out right now. My father's deeper voice joined the conversation. Haley, please calm down. We're trying to help you. Help me? By locking me in my room? Dad, listen to me. Stephanie is scamming Jason. She's already married to someone else. She's been stealing money from his accounts. I found proof in the garage in the red toolbox. Silence followed my outburst, then hushed consultation I couldn't make out. Finally, the sound of a key turning in the lock. The door opened to reveal my parents' worried faces, with Stephanie hovering behind them, the picture of concerned compassion. The toolbox. Dad said, frowning. Haley, I haven't kept a red toolbox in years. I got rid of it during the big cleanup last summer, remember? I pushed past them to the hallway. That's not true. I saw it last night. It had photos, documents. Honey, Mom interrupted gently, you didn't go to the garage last night. You were upset. Stephanie found you going through her personal things in her room. When she confronted you, you started making accusations. What? No, that's not what happened. Stephanie stepped forward, her expression a masterpiece of concern. Haley, you said I was trying to hurt Jason. You claimed I had another husband, that I was stealing. When I tried to calm you down, you locked yourself in your room and refused to come out. That's a lie. I turned desperately to my parents. Mom, Dad, you have to believe me. Check the garage, the evidence is there. We did check, Dad said quietly. After Stephanie told us what happened, I looked everywhere. There's no red toolbox, Haley. My mind raced. She must have moved it, hidden the evidence while I was unconscious. But how had she locked me in? External keyholes on bedroom doors weren't standard in modern homes. That's when I noticed the small scratch marks around my doorknob, fresh marks. She had installed a lock, probably while I was mysteriously asleep. Had she drugged me? The coffee I'd sipped during our confrontation. Where's Jason? I demanded. Out with his groomsmen, Mom said. We thought it best he focus on enjoying his day rather than worry about this situation. My phone. I took pictures of everything. Where's my phone? Stephanie produced my phone from her pocket. You dropped this during your episode. I was keeping it safe for you. I snatched it from her hand, quickly navigating to my photos. My heart sank. The entire album was empty, no photos of the evidence, nothing. You deleted them, I whispered. Deleted what, Haley? Stephanie asked innocently. There were no photos. You've been imagining things. I want to talk to Jason. Now. That's not a good idea, Dad began, but was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Hello? Anybody home? Jason's voice called from downstairs. I rushed past my parents and Stephanie, nearly tumbling down the stairs in my haste. Jason stood in the entryway, surrounded by gift bags from groomsmen shopping. His smile faded when he saw my face. Jace, I gasped, you need to listen to me. Stephanie isn't who she says she is. She's scamming you. She's already married to someone else, a man named Robert Carson. She's been stealing from your accounts. I found proof, but she's hidden it. Jason's expression shifted from confusion to concern to something harder. Behind me, I heard the others descending the stairs. Jason, Stephanie said, her voice trembling perfectly. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to tell you like this. I was hoping she would calm down. Tell me what? Jason asked, looking between us. Your sister has been struggling, she said gently. Last night, she went through my personal things, then started making wild accusations. She seems to believe I'm some kind of con artist. It's true. I insisted. Jason, think about it. How well do you really know her? Haven't you noticed money missing from your accounts? Haven't you wondered why she pushed for such a quick wedding? Jason's face darkened. Haley, stop it. Stephanie and I have joint accounts because we're starting a life together. And we're having a quick wedding because her mother's cancer might take a turn for the worse any day. You know this. I didn't know that. I'd never heard anything about Stephanie's mother being ill. She's lying to you, I pleaded. Check the garage. The red toolbox. What red toolbox? Jason interrupted. Dad got rid of that years ago. No, he didn't. It's still there, or it was until she hid it. Jason, please, you have to believe me. The hurt in his eyes cut deeper than any knife. What I believe, he said slowly, is that you're having some kind of breakdown. Stephanie warned me you seemed unstable lately, but I defended you. I said my sister would never sabotage my happiness. I'm trying to protect you. From what? The best thing that's ever happened to me. He shook his head. I know you've been unhappy, Haley. I know your business has been struggling, that you've been lonely. But this isn't the way to handle it. My business wasn't struggling. I wasn't unhappy or lonely. These were Stephanie's poison whispers, planting seeds of doubt over months. Jason, my father said, placing a hand on his shoulder, your mother, and I think it might be best if Haley takes a break. Maybe sits out the rehearsal dinner night. You want me to miss my only brother's rehearsal dinner? I asked incredulously. I think, Jason said, not meeting my eyes, that might be for the best. The betrayal was complete. My entire family had turned against me, manipulated by the woman who stood watching with perfectly simulated concern in her eyes. Behind the mask, I could see her triumph. I retreated to my room, locking myself in this time. Through the window, I watched Jason and Stephanie leave together, his arm protectively around her shoulders. My parents left shortly after for final venue arrangements. Alone in the house that no longer felt like home, I collapsed onto my bed, utterly defeated. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? How had Stephanie managed to turn my family against me so completely? My phone buzzed with a text message from the same unknown number. I'm sorry. I tried to warn you. Meet me at Riverside Coffee Shop downtown at 3 o'clock. I can help. With nothing left to lose, I grabbed my purse and car keys. Whoever this mystery texter was, they were now my only hope of saving my brother. Riverside Coffee Shop sat at the edge of downtown Westport, its weathered exterior overlooking the Saugatuck River. I'd chosen a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, my nerves on edge as I waited for my anonymous contact to appear. At precisely 3 o'clock, a man about my age walked in. Average height, slim build, with dark-rimmed glasses and the watchful eyes of someone who had seen too much. He scanned the room, his gaze finally landing on me. With quiet determination, he approached my table. Haley Montgomery, he asked. I nodded cautiously. I'm Alex Carson, he said, extending his hand. Robert's brother. The name hit me like a physical blow. Robert Carson, Stephanie's husband? One of them, yes. He slid into the seat across from me. I've been tracking Stephanie, or Melissa, as my brother knew her, for 2 years now. Melissa? She has many names. Stephanie Turner to your brother. Melissa Roberts to mine. Amanda Collins to her victim before that. His voice held a bitterness that came from deep personal pain. My brother committed suicide 18 months ago after she drained his accounts and disappeared. I stared at him, horror and validation washing over me in equal measure. I'm so sorry. But why didn't you go to the police? I did, Alex said, ordering coffee when the waitress approached. They investigated, but she's good at covering her tracks. By the time they had enough evidence for an arrest warrant, she had vanished. I've been following her trail ever since, warning her potential victims when I can identify them in time. The texts, I said. The evidence in the garage. He nodded. I planted the documents where I thought you might find them. I've been gathering evidence against her for months, financial records, identity documents, photographs. When I learned she was marrying your brother, I tried to warn him directly, but she intercepts his calls and emails. She's turned my family against me, I said, the pain still fresh. Made them think I'm having some kind of breakdown. Classic manipulation, Alex confirmed. She isolates her targets from anyone who might interfere. With my brother, she convinced him I was jealous of their relationship, that I was unstable. By the time he realized the truth, she had everything she wanted, and he was too ashamed to fight back. My brother's wedding is tomorrow, I said, desperation rising. How do we stop her? Alex leaned forward. I have duplicates of everything that was in that toolbox, plus more I've gathered since. But we need to act quickly. If your family won't listen, we need irrefutable proof, evidence they can't dismiss. What do you have in mind? Stephanie is staying at the Westport Inn tonight, right? Traditional night apart before the wedding. I nodded. With her bridesmaids. Her bridesmaids who conveniently all had to arrive just before the ceremony and won't be staying at the hotel. Alex asked knowingly. How did you know that? Because they don't exist, he said flatly. They're fictional friends she invents to create the illusion of a normal social life. Tonight, she'll be alone in that hotel room, finalizing her plans. You think we should break into her room? I asked, alarmed. Not break in. I reserved the adjoining room weeks ago, anticipating this. The lock between connecting rooms is simple to bypass. It sounded crazy, possibly illegal. But what choice did I have? My brother was about to marry a criminal who had already driven one man to suicide. What would we be looking for? Her real phone, not the one your brother knows about. Her actual financial documents. And most importantly, her exit strategy. She never stays after the honeymoon. There will be tickets, new identity documents, plans for extraction. I took a deep breath. Okay, I'm in. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing Alex's evidence, photographs of Stephanie with Robert, bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, marriage certificates, identity documents under multiple names. He had done meticulous research, even uncovering previous victims in 3 other states. She targets successful men with few close family ties, Alex explained. Your brother is unusual. She normally avoids victims with tight family relationships. She must have seen something particularly valuable to take the risk. Jason just made partner at his law firm, I said quietly. He mentioned setting up a trust for future children. Alex nodded grimly. That would do it. By 6:00 p.m., we had formulated our plan. While my family attended the rehearsal dinner without me, Alex and I would search Stephanie's hotel room. If we found what we expected, we would confront Jason with the evidence before the ceremony tomorrow. Be prepared, Alex warned as we parted. She's dangerous when cornered. Not physically violent, as far as I know, but ruthless in other ways. That evening, I sent a text to my mother claiming I was staying with a friend to process and would see them tomorrow. The lack of response spoke volumes about the damage Stephanie had done to my family relationships. At 7:30 p.m., I met Alex in the parking lot of the Westport Inn, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. We entered separately, Alex heading directly to his room while I lingered in the lobby, watching for any sign of Stephanie. 20 minutes later, I slipped into Alex's room, room 214, adjacent to Stephanie's 216. She left about 10 minutes ago, he reported. Dressed for dinner. My guess is she's meeting her real partner to finalize details. Her real partner? She doesn't work alone, Alex explained, producing a small tool from his bag. There's always someone else, the person who helps create the documents, who assists with the financial transfers. Sometimes it's the same man you saw in the photos, sometimes others. Working carefully, Alex disabled the lock on the connecting door. We entered Stephanie's room silently, quickly surveying the space. It was immaculate, her suitcase neatly packed, wedding dress hanging in a garment bag. Check the safe, Alex whispered, moving toward her laptop bag. The hotel safe was unlocked and empty. I moved to her suitcase, carefully sifting through layers of precisely folded clothing. Beneath her lingerie, my fingers touched something hard, a false bottom. I pried it open to reveal a hidden compartment containing a second phone, a passport under the name Catherine Miller, and a small USB drive. "Alex," I whispered, "I found something." He joined me, examining the items. "The escape package," he confirmed. "Let's check the phone." The phone was protected by a fingerprint lock, but the USB drive wasn't. Alex plugged it into his laptop, revealing dozens of files. Detailed financial information about Jason's accounts, copies of his identity documents, and most chillingly, transfer authorizations ready to be executed, moving nearly $2 million to offshore accounts. "This is dated for next Tuesday," I said, pointing to the screen. "During their honeymoon." "She works fast," Alex noted grimly. "Once the money's moved, she'll disappear." We continued searching, finding flight confirmations to Belize, one ticket only, departing next Wednesday. As Alex had predicted, she had no intention of returning from the honeymoon with Jason. Most disturbing of all was a small bottle of unmarked pills hidden in a toiletry bag. Alex photographed them carefully. "Sedatives," he said. "Powerful ones. She used similar drugs on my brother. Makes them compliant during the final stages." The sound of a key card in the door froze us both. Stephanie was back earlier than expected. "Quick," Alex hissed, grabbing his laptop. We retreated to the connecting door, but before we could close it completely, Stephanie walked in. Her eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. "Well," she said, her voice eerily calm, "this is unexpected." "It's over, Stephanie," I said, clutching the evidence we'd gathered. "Or should I call you Catherine? Or Melissa?" Her gaze shifted to Alex, recognition dawning. "Carson," she said flatly. "I should have known you'd find me eventually." "You killed my brother," Alex said, his voice shaking slightly. "Not directly, but you might as well have put the gun in his hand." "Robert was weak," she replied coldly. "Your brother made his own choices." "Like you're forcing Jason to make his?" I challenged. "Drugging him? Stealing from him?" A dangerous smile played across her lips. "Jason won't believe a word from either of you." "Not now. I've made sure of that." "We have proof," I said, gesturing to the USB drive and phone. "Documents, transfers, your escape plan, everything. And you think that will be enough?" She laughed, a chilling sound devoid of humor. "You broke into my hotel room. Stole my personal property. Anything you found will look exactly like what it is, a desperate attempt by a mentally unstable woman to sabotage her brother's happiness." She took a step toward me, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "If you try to stop this wedding, I will destroy Jason completely. Not just financially. I'll ruin his reputation, his career, everything. By the time I'm done, he'll wish he were dead, just like Robert." The naked malice in her words shocked me into silence. This wasn't just a scam artist, this was someone who enjoyed causing pain. "You won't get away with this," Alex said. "Not again." "I already have," Stephanie replied confidently. "Now get out before I call security and have you both arrested for breaking and entering." As we retreated through the connecting door, Stephanie called after me. "See you at the altar, sister dear. Do try to smile for the photos." Back in Alex's room, I sank onto the edge of the bed, shaking. She's right. If we take this to Jason now, he won't believe us. She's poisoned him against me completely. "Then we don't go to Jason," Alex said, checking his phone. "Not yet." "What do you mean?" He held up his phone, showing a recording app running. "I recorded everything. Her threats, her admission about the drugs, everything. It won't hold up in court, but it might be enough to make your brother listen." Hope flickered faintly. "So what now?" "Now," Alex said grimly, "we prepare for a wedding interruption." Wedding days are supposed to be filled with joy, with celebration, with the unique magic that comes from witnessing two people commit their lives to each other. As I stared at my reflection in the mirror, smoothing down the pale blue bridesmaid's dress I'd been ordered to wear, I felt nothing but dread. My parents had left me a terse note with the dress that morning, informing me that despite recent events, They expected me to fulfill my role in the ceremony. The family would present a united front. Problems could be addressed after the honeymoon. By then, it would be too late. Jason would be drugged, his accounts emptied, his heart broken. I couldn't let that happen, even if it meant my family might never forgive me. Alex and I had stayed up most of the night, preparing our approach. The wedding was scheduled for 2 p.m. at St. Luke's Episcopal Church, with a reception to follow at the Westport Country Club. We'd agreed that confronting Stephanie before the ceremony was too risky. She would simply have me removed, possibly forcibly. Our only option was to wait for the moment that wedding officiants had been dramatically asking for centuries. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't elegant. But it was our only chance to present our evidence before witnesses, including Jason. I arrived at the church an hour early as instructed, joining my mother and the other bridesmaids, who, contrary to Stephanie's lies, did exist, though I noted they seemed barely acquainted with her, in the preparation room. Stephanie ignored me completely, focusing on minute adjustments to her veil while my mother hovered anxiously nearby. "You look beautiful," Mom said to Stephanie, who wore a designer gown that probably cost more than my annual rent. "Thank you, Sandra," Stephanie replied warmly. "I'm so grateful to be joining your family." The calculated insincerity made my stomach turn. I slipped away to the bathroom, texting Alex for confirmation that he was in position. Seated near the back, came his reply. "USB presentation ready on laptop. Recording queued. Ready when you are." The next hour passed in a blur of photographs, processional rehearsals, and last-minute adjustments. I caught glimpses of Jason, handsome in his tuxedo but visibly tense, his smile not reaching his eyes. Was he having doubts? Or was it just normal wedding nerves? Before I knew it, the music had started. The bridesmaids processed down the aisle one by one. Then it was my turn, walking mechanically past rows of guests, feeling their curious stares. No doubt Stephanie had ensured rumors of my breakdown had circulated widely. I took my place at the altar, watching as the doors opened and Stephanie appeared on my father's arm, a vision in white, the perfect bride. If you didn't know what lurked beneath the surface, you would never suspect the calculation in her smile, the predatory assessment in her eyes as she approached her target. The ceremony proceeded with excruciating slowness. The officiant spoke of love and commitment, of trust and partnership, words that became ashes in my mouth knowing what Stephanie planned. Jason recited his vows in a voice that sounded hollow to my ears. Stephanie delivered hers with practiced sincerity that fooled everyone except me and the man sitting tensely in the back row. Finally, the moment arrived. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The traditional pause. My heart hammered in my chest. Now or never. "I can," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "I object to this marriage." A collective gasp rippled through the congregation. Jason turned to me, his face a mask of hurt and anger. Stephanie's eyes flashed with cold fury beneath her veil. "Haley," the officiant said uncertainly, "this is most irregular. My brother is being defrauded," I continued, stepping forward. "The woman he's about to marry is already married to someone else. She's been systematically stealing from his accounts and plans to disappear during their honeymoon." Murmurs of shock spread through the church. My mother covered her face with her hands. My father stood frozen, halfway out of his seat. "She's unwell," Stephanie said loudly, clinging to Jason's arm. "My poor sister-in-law has been struggling with delusions. We've been trying to get her help." "I have proof," I insisted, nodding to Alex, who stood and moved toward the front with his laptop. "Documents, recordings, photographs, everything." Jason's face had drained of color. "Haley, stop this. Right now. Listen to me, Jason. Please. Just look at the evidence. If I'm wrong, I'll never interfere in your life again. I swear it." Alex had reached us now, setting up his laptop on a small side table near the altar. "My name is Alex Carson," he announced to the stunned congregation. My brother Robert was married to this woman under the name Melissa Roberts. She emptied his accounts and disappeared. 18 months ago, he took his own life. Stephanie's composed mask began to slip, her eyes darting toward the exits. That's absurd, she said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Jason, make them stop this ridiculous display. Just look, I pleaded with my brother. That's all I ask. Something in my voice must have reached him. Perhaps some part of him had harbored his own doubts. With visible reluctance, he stepped toward the laptop. Alex pulled up the documents we'd discovered, the marriage certificate showing Stephanie's marriage to Robert Carson, bank statements revealing systematic transfers from Jason's accounts, flight confirmations for one person to Belize. This could be fabricated, Jason said, but his voice lacked conviction. Listen to this, Alex said quietly, playing the recording from the hotel room. Stephanie's voice filled the church, clear and unmistakable. If you try to stop this wedding, I will destroy Jason completely. Not just financially. I'll ruin his reputation, his career, everything. By the time I'm done, he'll wish he were dead, just like Robert. Jason staggered back, as if physically struck. He turned to Stephanie, searching her face. Tell me this isn't true. Before she could answer, the church doors burst open. A police officer entered, followed by a man I didn't recognize. Melissa Roberts, the officer called out. Or, do you prefer Stephanie Turner now? The man beside the officer stepped forward, his face grim. That's her, officer. That's my wife. It was Robert Carson, not dead as Stephanie had claimed to us, but very much alive. Alex's face showed as much shock as anyone's. Robert, he gasped. How? Your investigator found me in Tucson last week, Robert explained. I never committed suicide. That was just another of her lies. Chaos erupted in the church. Stephanie, or Melissa, suddenly bolted, shoving past me toward a side door. The officer moved quickly, intercepting her before she could escape. As he recited her rights, securing handcuffs around her wrists, she fixed me with a look of pure hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed as they led her away. In the aftermath, the guests dispersed in confused, murmuring groups. Jason stood alone at the altar, staring at the space where his bride had stood moments before. I approached him cautiously. Jason, I'm so sorry. He looked at me, his expression shattered. All this time, you were trying to protect me. I would never hurt you, I said softly. You're my brother. He pulled me into a fierce hug, his body shaking with emotion. I didn't believe you. I chose her over you. How can you ever forgive me? There's nothing to forgive, I assured him. She manipulated all of us. Our parents joined us, both looking shell-shocked. Mom was crying, Dad's arm tight around her shoulders. We should have listened, Dad said, his voice rough with emotion. We failed you both. No, I insisted. Stephanie, or whoever she is, she's an expert at this. She knew exactly how to turn us against each other. As the church emptied, Alex approached with Robert. The reunion between the Carson brothers was emotional. Alex had genuinely believed his brother dead, a deception Stephanie had carefully crafted to ensure Alex couldn't contact Robert directly during her schemes. She told me Alex had suffered a nervous breakdown and was spreading lies about me, Robert explained. I believed her completely, even changed my phone number, and moved to keep him from harassing me. It wasn't until the investigator showed me evidence that I realized what had happened. Later, at what should have been the reception venue, our reduced group, just family and the Carson brothers, sat stunned, processing the day's events. She was going to disappear during our honeymoon, Jason said hollowly, staring at the evidence spread before him. Drug me and clean out our accounts while I was incapacitated. She's done it before, Robert confirmed. 3 times that we know of. The police believe there may be more victims, Alex added. They're reopening investigations in multiple states. My brother looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. You saved me, Hales. If you hadn't been so stubborn, so determined. I squeezed his hand. That's what siblings do. We look out for each other. That evening, as the sun set on what should have been my brother's wedding day, our family gathered in my parents' living room. The atmosphere was somber, but somehow lighter, as if a toxic presence had been cleared from our midst. "What happens now?" Mom asked quietly. "The police will build their case," Dad said. "Jason may need to testify." Jason nodded, his expression determined despite his pain. "I'll do whatever it takes to make sure she can't do this to anyone else." I looked around at my family, wounded but intact, betrayed but not broken. The road to healing would be long, but we would walk it together. 6 months can change everything. As I parked outside my parents' house on a crisp fall evening, I marveled at how far we'd all come since that disastrous almost wedding day in April. Jason had transformed the family dining room into a weekly tradition, Thursday night dinners where we reconnected, rebuilt trust, and slowly healed our fractured relationships. Tonight was our 24th consecutive gathering. Inside, the house smelled of Dad's famous lasagna. Mom was setting the table with the good china, not because the occasion was special, but because she'd decided life was too short to save nice things for someday. "Perfect timing," she called, spotting me in the doorway. "Jason's already here." I found my brother in the kitchen, expertly assembling a salad. At 36, he looked younger than he had 6 months ago, the shadows under his eyes gone, his smile genuine again. He'd thrown himself into therapy after Stephanie's arrest, working through the trauma and betrayal with determination. "Hey, sis," he greeted me, pulling me into a one-armed hug. "Taste this dressing and tell me if it needs more vinegar." Such ordinary moments had become precious to us all. Over dinner, we talked about everything and nothing: Mom's new book club, Dad's woodworking projects, the historic brownstone I was renovating in Boston. Normal family conversation that once we might have taken for granted. "I got a call from the prosecutor today," Jason said during a lull. "The plea deal is finalized. Stephanie, or Melissa, or whatever her real name is, accepted 15 years with no possibility of parole for 10. We all absorbed this news silently. The investigation had ultimately identified 7 victims across 5 states, including Jason and Robert Carson. The financial crimes alone would have meant significant prison time, but the drugging and identity theft had elevated the charges substantially. "How do you feel about it?" I asked Jason carefully. He considered the question, twirling pasta around his fork. "Relieved, mostly. That it's over. That she can't hurt anyone else for a long time." He looked up, his expression reflective. "The hardest part was accepting that the person I thought I knew never existed. I wasn't just betrayed. I was fooled completely." "We all were," Dad reminded him. "She was extraordinarily convincing." "That's what makes people like her so dangerous," I added. "They study their targets, figure out exactly what we want to hear, what we need to believe." Jason had lost nearly $300,000 to Stephanie's systematic theft, money he would likely never recover. But as he often said, it was a small price to pay compared to what might have happened had the wedding proceeded as planned. "How's Alex doing?" Mom asked, passing the garlic bread. "Have you heard from him lately?" The question was directed at me, accompanied by a knowing smile that made me blush slightly. Alex Carson and I had developed a friendship in the aftermath of Stephanie's arrest, which had gradually evolved into something more. "He's good," I replied. "The support group he started for fraud victims is really taking off. 3 chapters now in different states." Alex had channeled his pain into purpose, creating a network for people who had been victimized by romantic scammers. The psychological damage often outlasted the financial loss he discovered, and few resources existed for recovery. "Are we going to see him this weekend?" Dad asked. "For the cabin trip." "He'll be there," I confirmed. We had planned a family weekend at a lakeside cabin, our first real vacation together since the wedding disaster. Alex would join us, along with Robert, who had become an unexpected addition to our extended circle. After dinner, Jason and I found ourselves on the back porch swing, just like countless evenings of our childhood. The night was cool, stars emerging in the darkening sky. "I never properly thanked you," Jason said quietly. "You don't need to." "No, I do," he insisted. "You risked everything: our relationship, your standing in the family. You kept fighting for me even when I rejected you completely." I leaned my head against his shoulder, the familiar gesture comforting us both. That's what love is, isn't it? Believing in someone even when they don't believe in themselves. I'm trying to see it as a hard lesson, he continued. About trusting my instincts, about recognizing when something feels wrong even if I can't articulate why. I nodded, understanding completely. In the months since Stephanie's arrest, we'd all reflected on the subtle warning signs we'd ignored, the inconsistencies in her stories, the convenient excuses, the way she isolated Jason from those closest to him. The detective who worked the case told me something that stuck with me, I shared. He said that con artists study human psychology better than most therapists. They know we want to believe the best about people, especially people we love. They count on our capacity for self-deception. And our fear of appearing foolish or paranoid, Jason added ruefully. We sat in companionable silence for a while, the porch swing creaking gently. I'm dating again, Jason said suddenly. Nothing serious. Just coffee so far. I turned to him, surprised and pleased. Jason, that's great. Who is she? Someone from my therapy group, actually. She went through something similar with her ex-husband. We're taking it incredibly slowly. Background checks included, he added with a self-deprecating smile. I'm proud of you, I told him sincerely. It would be so easy to just close yourself off after what happened. That would mean Stephanie wins, he said simply. And I'm done letting her take things from me. When I drove home that night, I reflected on how our family had emerged from this ordeal. The wounds weren't completely healed, perhaps they never would be, but we had grown stronger in the broken places. My parents had learned to listen more carefully, to question their assumptions. Jason had developed a healthier sense of self-protection without becoming cynical. And I had discovered a courage I hadn't known I possessed. The most profound lesson for all of us had been about trust, not just whom to trust, but how to trust our own perceptions even when others doubt us. There's a special kind of strength that comes from standing alone for what you know is right, even when it would be easier to stay silent. As difficult as the experience had been, it had given us all a deeper appreciation for authentic relationships, connections built on honesty and acceptance rather than manipulation and deception. We had been reminded of what truly matters, not the perfect wedding or the carefully curated image, but the messy, complicated, genuine love of family. Life doesn't come with guarantees. People will disappoint us, betray us, and sometimes try to harm us. But if we're fortunate, we also have people who will stand by us through the darkest times, who will believe in us when all evidence points elsewhere, who will fight for us when we cannot fight for ourselves. For me, that knowledge is worth all the pain it took to learn it. What would you do if you suspected someone close to you as being deceived? Would you have the courage to speak up, even if it meant risking relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the most important truths are the hardest to tell, but they're also the ones most worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you always trust your instincts when something doesn't feel right.